So I'm a co-panelist. My colleague from Xavier College, he's one of the folks who did the intro. He'll be probably showing up here in a minute. He was doing another panel session. I'm a fill-in. I'm not sure if he has slides or not, but I can talk about anything you want to know about college visits. Again, Kraft from Penn State. I'm just like you guys. My kids are in Hawaii High, so I'm starting this too. And despite all of my counseling, my kids are not following what I keep telling you. So I'm right there with you. No worries. And any questions are good. It looks like we're going to have a small group, or maybe other groups are running along. So I do have Penn State materials. I'm not going to really talk about Penn State stuff. If you want to talk about that, you can see that. So, how many, which schools are here? So I'm from Hawaii. Where are you guys from?
Westview.
Westview? Okay. Already? What's that? Okay. So I visited all of our schools. Hey, today we're on Kraft, right? Good, yeah. Hey, Kraft. I was just saying, I don't know if you have slides.
I do, yeah. We can plug those in. I think I just saw some of you already. How'd you guys get here so fast? I Ubered. I was waiting for my Uber and Lyft. I was nervous when this is all the way across campus. Yeah.
Yeah, I was already starting. So again, Kraft from Penn State. I represent all of the Penn State campuses. Like I said before, we can talk about that afterwards. I'm here to really talk about visits. I'm sure that's what all of you say.
Karaoke singers.
Yeah. Do you need us to be mic? Do you need us to use the microphone for the recording?
It's up to you guys. Whatever works best for y'all.
Oh yeah. You think it's okay if we don't?
Yeah, I can just adjust a little.
Trouble. Is this for your grade?
Is this to get into college?
Yeah.
That's just in case.
So what have you learned so far tonight?
Holy crap.
That's a pretty nice word to use there. For this one.
Right? I know what to do in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And, so part of my spiel is, so going to college is going to be your second most expensive investment behind buying a house. So nothing I'm going to tell you is any more than common sense, but that should give you the sense of urgency and the importance behind anything to do with colleges, and the visit is part of that process.
Yeah, then you'll survive. It's a journey. You work with a senior?
No, I got a junior.
Junior, plenty of time. Yeah. Come home and watch Netflix after this.
You've got time.
Um,
Finals is next week.
yeah. But yeah, we are here to focus on the college visit, kind of what you can garner from that. Again, I'm Devine. I work at Xavier University. I'm based here in California, so we're a local friendly admissions counselor. But love the work we get to do. Love working with people like that from Solutions back there. We say hello to our two friends that joined us here, but it does work out. Just kind of be open at this point and try to soak in as much as you can. And I think the visit is a great way to kind of see colleges and universities. Even if you go locally, or if you're traveling over the holidays, just go into a different part of the country, stop in and see a college or two. Do a tour. What students are looking to learn first is what's college like, right? What's there? And so if you ever worked in sales, you've got features and benefits. And features are all the great things we talk about, right? We have all kinds of things. I went to college in the 80s, got into admissions in the 90s, and I don't know, remember this, to talk about rock walls? Like everybody was building rock walls on our campus. We all built them, we all put them on the tour, but nobody used them, right? A small group of a dozen students who form the rock climbing club would use those. So a feature is something that's offered, but it's only a benefit if the student is looking to use that. So that's something I think they can learn in the search and in the visit part of that process. So the why, right? Really to open up their eyes. Again, I don't approach this search or the visit to campus as an opportunity to really just go in there having answers, number one, but to close out or rule out schools. The why is to kind of broaden out their horizons. I said in the last session, the freshman year or the four-year experience is about a bucket list. That's what our current students on campus say. College is about doing stuff, right? And many of these colleges offer a lot of great opportunities to do those bucket list items. So kind of visit and get that opportunity to learn early, the sophomores and juniors, what campuses offer. My friend from Hawaii was taking a soccer team to a tournament here and set up a tour at USD. All the students were from Hawaii and they went on tour with USD. And I knew some people there to help set it up, and he asked me to speak to the students before going because many of them didn't want to go to Southern California. They wanted bigger schools. They wanted to stay home. But we told them, look at what college offers in this visit and look to come back, not as parents, since we have all parents and one student, but to ask them what they got out of the experience or what made an impactful, kind of important sense to them. Who does the tours at Penn State?
All sorts of people, mostly students. We have student ambassadors, and then we do a variety of things. So we can do tours, we can do all sorts of experiential visits. Where kids can stay in the dorms overnight. We have open houses, and we have all sorts of different orientation things. What I was going to say, which people have said in all the sessions so far, one of the things I've always said is even if you just don't want to go to school here in San Diego, we have 20 universities and community colleges in San Diego of all stripes. Large, small, private, public, religious, non-religious, secular, all flavors. Go and do those. Do it on a weekend. It's free, it's cheap, it's easy, and see what you don't want to see. You're going to go there and go, oh, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. And your kids don't want to go to that school. But now your kids' job is to find a good fit for them. We can offer you everything, but it may not be what you want. Go look at every local school, see what you like and don't like, and then start spending money and your valuable time and going abroad if you don't want to go to school here, and make very targeted, informed choices.
And yeah, getting down to their final selection, we know that the size of the school is a big part of that. So defining what's important to the student, they really don't know. They're going to guess that Xavier is small, 5,300, Penn State, how many?
We have just undergraduates, we have just under 8,000 students. Yeah.
Right, so different sizes. A lot of students just think bigger is better. Some kind of don't gravitate. Sometimes they don't want to look at big schools. But the idea of seeing those schools and what that experience is like, you can go to San Diego State and USD and get a great understanding of what that feels like. I just did a student panel on our campus, and listening to the students and their visit experience, what they pick up on, a lot of the little things that happen on the tour. How many faculty might maybe said hi to the tour guide, how the interaction was between their classmates. They start to pick up and hone in on what's important to them. And so size of campus, I think it's a great idea. Visit locally and start to kind of look at that, narrowing that down as a particular search criteria. So when to do visits? It's never too early, right? If you're driving around, again, for holidays, just get out and see campuses. I think you can build capacity. We don't need 8th graders to come and show interest, demonstrate interest that early. We do welcome sophomores to campus. We have students that do a drive-by. They just come onto campus. We have a self-guided tour, and a family can kind of browse about campus. Many times, students will come and poke around as they come to see a sporting event. So if you have opportunity while traveling to check out a basketball game, I think you've got sports at Penn State. But observe the campus life there. I just went to see a volleyball game at UCSD. A great opportunity to see what the student body looks and feels like, the support for the team. So,
but that's a good point too. I just focus on that. In our family now, every time we travel, we visit a local school. whether my kid wants to see it or not, can we bring the freshmen along with us, because I don't feel like, if I can
Well,
avoid
you
it.
don't want to do it twice?
Yeah, I don't want to do it
Come
twice.
on.
Right. And so many younger students, when we talk to them, like their knowledge, I was the oldest, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but when we talk to the youngers, they pick up a lot on the tours. Younger? Older?
Only.
Okay.
Only I was the
Trick question, not an SAT question. Yeah. But again, you can do them prior, you can do it sophomore, junior year. The game may change a little bit if you go after submitting your application. The experience, we can kind of break down what you can do on campus, but it's never too early to kind of check things out. We do see in California, when students look out of state, many students will come back and visit us after they've been through the admission process. Because let's say you do travel to see an East Coast school, a lot of students will extrapolate their list, and I have no problem sitting and talking with a student that says, I'm thinking about your school because I got to visit University of Dayton. I was there visiting my grandparents, I saw that school. I have now decided Midwest, medium-sized school, that's my fit, right? And then a lot of the students and families that I work with in California, they come for that visit, maybe that first visit sometime in March, April, and we do a ton of field events. So it could happen anytime throughout that junior or senior year. Again, it doesn't have to be official. Do note it if you can. Schools that track demonstrated interest, like us, Lafayette, would love to know that you were on campus, so you can make it official by tapping in with the admissions office. Other times you might write it in your supplemental essay, an additional essay that a college might require. You might say, great opening line. During my sophomore year, I got to visit the awesome campus in Wyoming, and I fell in love with it. And that's a great kind of start to that approach. So all throughout the year, we're seeing visits. Summer is particularly a good time. Some schools do big programs, but once you get into the real, I'm doing these searches for real, you want to be there sometime in the midweek. You want to see students in action. That can extend to the weekends or evenings for sporting events. So try to watch for days that they might be quiet or something big. Finals days might not be as exciting to see something. Avoid those. Most of us have online systems that you can register for events. Usually you'll see a calendar and a menu of things that you can do. So for our students pre-application, we'll have everything from an information session. So you'll sit in a room, hear a presentation for 30 minutes, and then go on tour. Other times students just come on tour, or we might have organized events. We have, by college, for example, we'll have a nursing day open house, we'll have a business school open house. So there are kind of a suite of menu opportunities to consider when you visit. What's kind of the populace of Penn State?
Well, I was going to say, we do the same thing. So our 12 academic colleges have open houses, and sometimes they're overnight. We have student-run tours. One thing I'll say, which we'll probably get to later, is try to break off the tour. Because our tours are engineered to show our best side. And you want to see everything. So we will let you go and go do stuff. Go talk to students, go talk to professors, wander off the beaten path. One thing I would say here is depending what your student's looking for should also guide what you're trying to get. So we're a big school spirit school, high energy school. We have a lot of students in the summer, but you're not going to get the same vibe in the summer. We're also an East Coast school, so you're going to get a completely different weather vibe in the summer than you would in the fall, spring, winter. So we have 4 distinct seasons.
It's humidity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we only want you to visit from like September 15th to Thanksgiving. That's when we take all these pictures right here. Yeah. But yeah, some of our students, they say, I want to see it in February. I want to see if I can top it out for the winters there, if they're going out of state. So oftentimes they'll do that.
That's why we all live
Yeah,
here.
exactly. And that's why you send them away to teach them that lesson about why we live here, right? Why we pay what we pay to live here. So, but yeah, there's really some best times when as you move forward, there's opportunity to kind of craft and tailor that. You may look for additional things. The school might put them up front and offer those. Always you can reach out to admission professionals to say, I'm going to campus. Specialty opportunities, maybe to meet with a coach, maybe if a son or daughter is really engaged in a type of research within STEM or engineering, they may want to sit in with faculty, they may want to sit in on a classroom in any number of disciplines, so schools will oftentimes offer that opportunity. So usually the admission counselors are great. person to start with and tailoring that particular visit. We've seen students even inquire about sitting with somebody from the outdoor club, or from the cycling club, because they're really into that extracurricular activity. And just another opportunity to make that connection with somebody on campus. They may do some research, maybe through us, probably from their high school, to see if anybody else from their the previous graduating class of their high school attends the university, and they may get opportunity to check in with them, request to meet with them, like Rob said, after the tour. Number one thing students want to do, test the food, right? So I always wanted, with touring campuses, I wanted to go out to eat in the area. My mom always wanted to test the food, so we'd sit in the dining hall, and she'd embarrass me, so that's kind of what moms do, right? So there's opportunities to kind of see all those, those events on campus. If they do lean in and want to do an interview, if the school values those, there are schools that don't do them. There are schools that suggest them or highly encourage them. There are schools that make them available. But if they want to sit and do that, it's a great thing to do. They'll be petrified. Usually you should do a practice school or two when you do that one-on-one meeting. We do have sessions talking about interview preparation. It is scary sometimes for these young people, but it's a great opportunity to showcase their interest. It was part of the schools I've been at. It's usually part of that process. At Lafayette, a lot of our seniors did the interviewing, so a great opportunity to connect with a student, but they were evaluative, meaning used in the admission process. Other times they're informative, so some story may make it into the application of that meeting, but usually for the students, it's a two-way street to sit and talk with a professional, ask questions, and share about themselves. So take advantage of those opportunities as well. Likewise, we do come to you. We're here. We're at college fairs. We visit high schools. So the opportunity to kind of visit with us while we're in California really exists as well. A lot of schools will host information sessions, a really good chance to decide where you might want to visit later on. We see many California families take advantage of that. Some schools do a one-on-one meeting at Starbucks or Panera, give an opportunity for the student to tell about who they are, and for the student to learn about the campus, and that might entice them to come back to campus. Virtually, too, we're doing a whole lot more. There's still some lingering things. We do provide a lot of virtual events that students can lean in on. Most of them are recorded, but it is a chance for us to showcase our programs and our campuses, so we can take advantage of those. Many of them are logged officially into the student record, so if the school does value that demonstrated interest, those kind of virtual or connections here could be a part of what they do.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the virtual tour is a great first pass way to downselect places. If you're not really sure what you're doing, that's a great, easy, inexpensive, quick, convenient way to do it. The thing about the practice sessions, if there's interviews, Penn State doesn't do interviews, but again, another reason why to visit schools around here, just the visit alone, you may not realize this, but your student is not comfortable necessarily going on this visit. And so to just dive in and start, you're talking to us, we're going on these visits, so they get, you don't want to waste time. And do you have any questions?
Yeah. That is our, when students think what's the toughest interview question, that's usually the one. What questions do you have? Because it just shows that it feels like they're disinterested, and then parents drag them there if they don't have any questions. So, but we know that this is part of their, learning and evolving to advocate for themselves. But we always tell students to be prepared when they meet with us to brag. There are 3 brag points, right? So the brag points are not, I'm a great dancer, and I look good in blue or something. It's that what they do. Tell us about your activities. Who are you, right? Oh, I'm in scouts, or I play football, or with band. So the brag points are the what they do, the stuff that goes into who they are personally. That's part of that. Maybe a little bit about their academics, but be prepared to share that with us. If you're coming to Penn State or to Xavier, why are you here, right? Might be the fact that I lived here up until the age of 5, or my grandfather's from this area. So, don't say my mom made it. Yeah, no. Unless your mom went there and it's been a battle, right? But the other thing is to prepare questions, have questions for the admissions counselor. Do research on the school, showcase you've done some research, but really commit to have questions about programs, activities, traditions, perhaps other California students, how they do at that particular institution, the relations students have with the city, faculty. So really helping them to think about some questions to help them differentiate?
Just to underline that, so, you know, the thing to hit home with your students is they're gonna have to do that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
When they start doing financial aid, like we have a scholarship for our local alumni, one of the questions always is, why do you deserve this? So you have to thought that out. But if they want to do an internship or go to grad school or eventually get a job, they have to, you know, that's a great program to have. We don't do that, but, you know, coming prepared to answer questions about yourself, students have to get comfortable doing that because they're going to do it themselves.
Be prepared for it. You can see us in our kind of Midwest and Northeast dress here. But think about parking, timing. Campuses are huge, right? So you get to campus, oh, my appointment's at 8, it's 7:59, and you got to walk 10 miles to get across the Texas A&M campus. Yeah, exactly, right.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, you dress appropriately. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's Penn State. Well, it's just, yeah. But the dress code is funny, right? Because it's much different. I worked at a school in Hawaii, I worked at schools in the Northeast, so if you show up in a suit in Hawaii, usually people think you're going to court for something. But if you show up in board shorts and a tank top in New England, you know, the student will look around and think, oh, I kind of should have done this, right? And they're going to say, Mom, we're not going. Let's run back to the store. But so you can ask those questions of us. A lot of times we'll print or send an electronic guide to what the visit will be like. But again, as you tailor that visit, look and ask and see what's going to happen during that visit. So you kind of feel prepared. The student feels prepared. And they don't feel like they're just getting thrown into a kind of a hairy situation. Yeah, but know about the schools. Again, if you're visiting schools, do that pre-research. You know, don't ask obvious questions, but do showcase your research by inquiring. All right, Xavier's in Cincinnati. How often do the students spend time in the city? Right, so you showcase some of that research. Know a little bit about the school as you lead into that visit. Have an idea of some of the basic admission requirements, but ask that as well. It's always fair game to ask in the admission general session or in the interview one-on-one meeting about the admission procedures. Students may even share with us their GPA. I've had students now tell me they're testing and ask, should I submit it, should I not submit it? Will I be a good candidate? They can find out and ask information about that. But their questions are always opportunities to brag. So if a student is active in something, let's say it's community service, and they come to me and say, hey, I'm very active in the Poway area doing community service. I know your school has a lot of activities. Can you tell me about some of the service programs in Cincinnati? It's a great way to brag, but also ask questions. That gets us just excited to see and envision the student kind of asking on our campus. So have that research done, but again, early visits, students may not have all that knowledge. They're just looking to build that knowledge. And I think the campus tour is one of the best ways to do that. So do the research, yeah. And during the visits, yeah. So be prepared, be on time. It does throw students off when they arrive late. Kind of ask questions, show that level of interest, especially when students, with jet lag, they fly in the night before, they can't get sleep, they're tired, they're cranky, they didn't get to have an in-and-out burger the night before, so they approach the visit a little bit differently. Take notes, take pictures, encourage them to do that, because when you flash to April of the senior year, that final decision is going to come from some magical, mystical place, and for students to go back and reflect on those visits, what kind of feeling they had, oftentimes we pick that university in the end based on a gut feel. It's hard for them to explain. So some note-taking, picture-taking is always critical. They can get business cards, follow up with faculty. Our tour guides love to follow up with students that have been on tour with them. And so often students engage back and forth without us knowing between those tour guides. And the tour guide may share additional stories as they move through the year, ask even for tips on applying. So do that. Any other great to-dos?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, the Take Notes journal, one of the best things is everyone's got a smartphone, turn on the video camera, and just pan around and speak into it or use the memo feature. Because I've experienced this now, when you go on a road trip, like over winter break or spring break, and you hit like 6 or 7 or 8 colleges, they all start learning. And so immediately after the tour, you were the student should sit down and just go, all right, loved it, like this, like this, like this. It'll just jog your memory. You have to be detailed. Just jog your memory when you get back.
Some of the don'ts. Don't wear the competitor shirt with the Ohio State shirt, or University of Dayton in our case, or anybody that did.
Guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
By all means, come to Penn State and wear the wrong colors.
Yeah.
Or get tackled.
Look at tackle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just duct taped to the football field or something.
That's what's happening to me right
Buy any sense of apparel.
now.
Right?
Yeah, we got friends, they bought the school sweatshirt at like 13 colleges.
Right.
Like, you're not gonna
You're
You're not gonna wear it next year.
Yeah, exactly.
You're only gonna wear one of these.
Yeah. But yeah, with the tip there is don't overcommit early, right? So students that put all their eggs in their basket, make sure they can go. The idea we talked about in the last session, love a list. Groom a list through that senior year. You love a list because it's about what you do in college. What you protect is your bucket list, the what you want to do, your major, all those things. The where you go and do that, it's kind of secondary. It really is. So don't overcommit to the sweatshirt. Don't overcommit to the hat. We don't look back and ask you, how much did you buy in our bookstore? $100 worth. We should admit you, right? We don't do that. And train your students to ask the questions. We do not worry lots of these questions when the parents ask, where are we going to live? Or where are we going to dine? Or when do we pick our classes? It's not a we, it's about the student. So really encourage the students to ask questions. We know sometimes they need a nudge, especially boys. I get that. But try to kind of train them and prep them for that. It is interesting for parents to see when I do college interviews, so many schools done evaluative interviews. And oftentimes the students will sit in the waiting room and I'll walk through the door and we'll just call a name. Sven Stiller? Never replied, but just the name I came up with, right? But they'll be sitting here and all of a sudden it's like game time. And the student looks at the mom, and the mom looks at the student, and it's like this nerve-wracking moment of fear that the student's like, oh my God, I'm really going to get up and go talk to this guy. And a lot of the parents are walking with us, right? No, parents sit down. We'll come back and get you for the final 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So it's one-on-one. I've seen students looking back. And I've also seen parents try to provide, 17 years of parenting in the 5 minutes before they walk into the room. Don't forget this, don't forget that. Remember this, what your grandfather told you. But that's why we laugh about this. We often tell funny stories about students that were just not prepared. I did have a young man once that had a sweatshirt on, zipped up, and his mom, when he stood up, fixed his hair, and then told him to take off his sweatshirt. A little family battle ensued. He took off his sweatshirt, and he had a t-shirt on that was from a restaurant called Hooters. And she berated him right there. And I did get the call, I love it, the email that said, can I please, Mr. Devine, have a do-over interview, do-over meeting? We granted that for him. But the idea of that mental preparation is just kind of think about that process, but let them know they're going to step into that arena. We're familiar with the fact that it's oftentimes their first time self-advocating. Many students struggle with bragging about themselves or talking about themselves, but we're there to meet with them. We understand that, so we will send them back to you in that 45 minutes and ready to go. Yeah, so have fun, right? I mean, is it fun to see a Penn State game when they're playing at home? Yes. But probably a little tougher to get a lot of individualized attention on a big day like that.
Well, your one slide that visits schools on like Monday through Thursday, you definitely want to do that because what's happening on Friday and Saturday.
Yep. Yeah, the big events, open house events, we can welcome 500, 600 students. So it's a little tough to get that individualized attention, but again, a great way to kind of anonymously move through and see the entire school. In the big open house events, we will have faculty, administrators, student groups out. So it's a great way to kind of take a deep dive in. But those smaller individualized tours might be more that one-on-one time to ask questions. Again, students might build and do multiple visits throughout that opportunity. Yeah.
I would just say attend the class. You can actually just walk in and sit at the back of the room.
Sure. Consider forever. Yeah. A lot of schools you can pre-set it up too. They'll write back and forth with teachers. Smaller schools might notice. Did you guys just hear the story about the kid at Stanford?
Yeah, he was at Stanford for a year.
He wasn't admitted.
So he just go to class.
He just went to class.
He just showed up.
Yeah. So there was a young lady that did it in 2009, and she made a news. She's probably gonna write a book. But she got denied. She bought the sweatshirt and just went. And her parents were like, see you, honey. Have a good semester. And she went for 2 semesters. They finally found her just living with friends. She went to class, went to football games. Obviously didn't have a transcript. But another young man just did it. Stanford admitted, yeah, we don't have a lot of control over who's coming onto campus and off campus. But obviously not a great way to do a college search. Don't be so committed that I have to go to that school, even if they deny me. I'm showing up, right?
Well, so for one, just to allay fears, almost all of our rooms these days are like a hotel key. Not just the room, but like the entrance to the thing. Classrooms are not that way. So that you can just wander.
Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely sit in on classes. It's sometimes fun for students to meet faculty. But it's always interesting because sometimes the student, I've had a great professor in Hawaii who loved marine science, and I would always send him these great marine science students. But Chris was such a great counselor at heart, and he would have an hour-long conversation, and he would get the students so comfortable. They would say, what else can I tell you? What else? And what other questions? And they'd say, well, if I don't like marine science, how easy is it to switch to business? He'd pull his hair out. He's like, no, I'm trying to inspire these kids, right? But I was like, Chris, they're 18. We know they're not all going to kind of find their way through, but the opportunity to sit in on class can be fun. Sometimes it'll be guided with the student. They'll go with another freshman or sophomore on campus. So the term we use on campus is usually ambassadors. We call our tour guides. So there's tons of student ambassadors.
Very good at wild backgrounds.
Yes, they can. And they know all the details of every year things were found, more than we know. But if you are there overnight, if you do get to spend time, think about kind of the local area. Breakfast spots, restaurants, shopping areas to kind of poke in there. Just casually ask, so how are those students up at school X? Can't really do that because that's us. But how are the students at that particular institution, or get a sense of what students do? Typically not till their junior and senior year, but the surrounding areas. Favorite hotels and restaurants around campus from when they visit. Always thinking ahead to Parents' Weekend, right? So someday you're going to be booking
A year
your
out.
date. Your parents, what's that?
A year out.
A year out, yep. 4 years to graduation, right? So, is it competitive? Is it tough to find hotels around Penn State?
Yeah, that's so we have multiple campuses. Our big D1 campus. It is hard to get hotels during big events.
Yeah.
It's just this. I don't know.
Yeah, like our homecomings, big games, and graduation. So it's funny, as out-of-staters, what's really cool, if you show up at a local hotel, especially if it's a smaller place, and you get to know the manager, this is your parent job. I do know people in Pennsylvania at Easton that would get the parents out of state that they got to know, and they'd send them an email and say, hey, we're releasing rooms for graduation 2 years from now. Yeah, we're going to give you a first shot at booking. Yeah, so make some connections when you're out there, right? Know some of the local people that can be helpful. We ask you to complete evaluations. It's always good to kind of send thank you notes, particularly to admission counselors if you meet one-on-one, definitely to faculty if you meet with them. Like I said, many of our ambassadors will write a note that says, hey, thanks for visiting, let us know if you have questions. But if the student can, at least send one general reflection email back to the university, that shows great touch. Many times they're tagged to their academic file. So when we're reviewing an application, we might get that nice thank you note, and we get kind of an instant reaction. I love the sense of spirit here at Penn State during my visit. So always a classy things to do. And I think like Rob said, we're training these students for the future, right? When they're applying for jobs and so on. So it's a great training piece. Yeah, write those notes, keep that journal, and kind of think about what we're going to. That again, training them to think about in April, there's this massive decision, right? And so kind of weeding through all that, kind of combing through the reflection of their visits, that's going to be helpful. But have fun with the visits, right? Definitely have fun with those. Kind of consider the on-campus big events versus the small events. Take advantage of opportunities to connect locally, to kind of admissions counselors, especially with a lot of the people that are regionally based. They can give you some insight on best times to visit. Definitely do that. Always wear comfortable footwear. I think that didn't come up. Yeah, try to make it a good day, a high energy day, so that you can take advantage of all those opportunities. It can be long, it can be tiring. Think about when you do visits, how many you can fit in a day. 3 is tough. Usually you have, especially if you go to the Northeast or Ohio, you can possibly get 3. 4 is crazy. Those are the drive-bys where you might be doing quick tours. If the student's younger, you can always tell the school, we just want a tour. That's usually the minimum kind of thing you want to do. But you can, in those tour situations, probably make it to multiple schools. But it gets to be a long day. You start to sound the same. So really thinking about when you're getting, especially tour, if you're before applying, you might look at that 2 a day. After, students tend to spend one visit a day. They might get kind of 1 full day at one school, and then a school they're also considering swing by for the late afternoon. But it's tough to take it all in and really see the area, get a sense of the community. Just spend that quiet moment on campus. It's tough to do all of that. So definitely think about that. Yeah.
So I'm a sophomore now, so would you say that the visiting time should really be junior year and then the applications come after that?
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see like the prime time when they're ready, and it's a good time is like the spring of your junior year. And in Poway, you can swing it like we're planning to do stuff over the winter and spring break. This year, my daughter's a junior. Before, she wasn't too interested, and then later, you're really getting down to brass tacks. So, and things are going to be hot and heavy for senior year.
Yeah, again, they call it clumping sometimes. So the type of school, usually when students make a decision, location is a critical deciding factor. So how far from home, what's the surrounding community, what's the weather, so a lot packed into location, and then size of the institution. So oftentimes when they're visiting early, again, they might not get to every school that they apply to, but they can extrapolate kind of information from visiting USD that might apply to Xavier, because we're similar size, maybe similar kind of geographic relation to the city, but they can kind of start to see and feel what in that junior year, what that experience would be like. And again, as they come back towards their get through the admission process, students visiting in April, we provide a lot on campus. We have 2 big open house events, many open house events on all the Fridays throughout April. But it's go time for us to showcase the campus. Again, that's typically when students are already admitted. So that's a little bit more of a crash course. And we do see some students late senior year, they do a quick drive-by and get a sense that, yep, I've been here for the open house in September, and now I'm just reconfirming what I remember, but that fresh memory thing comes up. But, yeah,
As I say, most of our open houses are in the spring. We do like a university-wide open house in the summer. Those are great, but they're for the masses, and there are fewer students on campus. But definitely, I would advocate over the spring.
Yeah.
When I went to college, I had a portfolio review, so I didn't have I'm just trying to understand the relationship with you guys are both involved in just, hey, welcome to campus, here's who we are, what it's about, and interviewing to get accepted into the college, and I was part of deciding who gets accepted.
So we have 2 different jobs, and I'll let him go first.
Yeah. So yeah, we use demonstrated interest in Xavier at Lafayette, so we would look to connect with those students. In some schools, it's an evaluative part of the application. It can be part of it, so it might be a piece of the application where we actually see an interview right up. But a lot of schools, it's just informational. It's not required for admission. So you can ask schools, are interviews encouraged, required, are they an option, or do they not even exist? There's a whole range of that. Usually you can think about size of school. They may not have the opportunity to provide those one-on-one opportunities. Selectivity, highly selective schools won't have time to use those meetings evaluatively. So your Ivy Leagues, for example. But students, it's not always an evaluative part on our end. It could be on their end. So some schools are using in that regard. But that's going to be a smaller number that say we require it. It's part of the admission process. Most are just kind of, it's an opportunity, if you'd like to take it. Some will use the notes or information from that meeting in perhaps a discussion of the application. Others won't. It's just from the student. And we're always recruiting, because in the last session we talked about no school will yield 100% of the admits, right? Not one school. So Harvard's fighting with Yale, Stanford, we're all kind of going to be in there recruiting. They're going to promote their schools. So I think students will often have that opportunity to kind of get that sense that they're being kind of recruited to the institution, and why we, people who work there, think it's great.
So we're a large school. We admit on two things, academic focus. 2/3 weight on your high school GPA, 1/3 weighted on your standardized test score. We do track interest, but it's only a very, very minor thing if you're academically marginal, and then we look at your whole application. So at Penn State, we get your application, we look at your GPA and your SATs, and if you're what we're looking for, we just send you an offer. If you're academically marginal, then we do look at the whole student. So that's for the normal application. For our accelerated pre-med, it's a completely whole student evaluation, and also for our honors college, it's a complete whole student evaluation. It's separate, and those are both separate from our normal application.
How many schools have honors? That's
Probably most. Yeah, some of the small schools, Lafayette didn't, they kind of would say, we're all in the honors program. So Lafayette, we have 5 different honors programs. So schools over 3,000 often will have kind of a designated honors program. Could be by major. We have them in specific majors like business, STEM. But a lot of schools will have honors colleges to kind of attract and retain the top students. Students.
You apply for that, or you
Yeah.
wait?
Well, it depends, I guess,
Yeah.
but for us, it's an additional application.
Same with us, yeah. Oftentimes, there are schools that will do both. It's just based on the academics and the application. You may be invited to join the honors college. It may be a choice. You can say, I don't want to do it. But at Xavier, right now, the students would do an additional application to apply to any of the 5 honors programs. And so, it's based on academic, their academic.
Admission time frame is about the same as the normal application, or it's earlier, or?
For the honors, ours would be the admissions application process takes place, then you're invited to apply for honors.
Right. Correct. So that's what we do. You do the application, slightly different deadlines, but you won't find out until the admissions office lets the honors college know that they're admitted. They'll make their decisions in parallel, but they'll hold back until the admissions office extends an offer of admission.
And you also mentioned accelerated,
Pre-med.
so is that the earlier application?
That it's a separate application, separate timeline, not earlier. It's again in parallel, and they have different templates.
I see.
Do you guys have like a tour schedule, like when the schools have their representatives in our area? Is there a way to kind of see who's
So I
coming?
live here.
Yeah.
You
I live here, yeah, we live here. I travel on the whole West Coast. But yeah, a lot of schools will have, sometimes they'll call it meet your counselor. Sometimes there's a map of the country you can click on parts. Counselors will know. But oftentimes you can type in a state and find out who the representative is for the area. Many schools run on their website will publish when we're traveling to California. A lot of us will be back in the spring for the national college fairs. There's big fairs. Any solutions wants to promote?
Well, the WAC.
The WAC.
There might be a big fair March 18th.
March 18th, yep. So then you can.
It's very title for franchise.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's a super fringe.
Open to everyone.
Usually the high schools
Well,
kind of
Yeah, as I say, so all of your high schools, and you can get on this list because I am at Poway, they publish a list of who's coming when. And they have all manner of things. They'll have like a mini college fair, a big college fair. Poway's will be in the spring this year. And then they have rep visits. They'll have 1, 2, 3 reps a day coming. And we sign up and they publish it on your campus's website.
Yeah, there's probably close to 100 schools that visit the high schools directly. So encourage your students to take advantage of that. Again, they're kind of broadening their horizons. If there's a school that's coming from a place that you have relatives or you've seen them in a basketball game, it's great to look at those lists and say, hey, go check that out. There's no commitment to it, but really to stretch that list. When we were just talking about those reach target likelies in the last session, expanding that list, it's great. If they sit with us here and learn about what we have, they start to see our features, but then kind of defining benefits, what's important to them. So encourage them to lean into this process. The more they show up, the more they're going to learn, and they're going to build that capacity and able to make a committed decision. So yeah, take advantage of the times that we're here in California. Team Solutions, anything else from the visit experience? Just love it. See the winter.
Well, one thing I would suggest is sign up on the website of the college as an student or send me more information, whatever. Then you get on our mailing list and you get all the information of when they're going to be in town.
And we do that. We have, what we call lead cards, or now we use like QR codes. And every time I visit, I have a QR code, and it's tagged to that school and that day, and they just fill out, basically name,
Right, you get
email
on the
address.
mailing list and then.
And that's pretty interesting. So if you're in the system, that's a little check mark for they're interested in that school. So that might help you.
Yeah, and with the younger students, managing this communication flow, it's going to be insane. I mean, they're going to go from getting like a few emails from friends to a billion emails a day. And so we do overdo it. I've been asked we do sessions on executive function, and we're like, forget that. It's not the executive function. It's that we're killing these kids. Their inboxes are just blasted with this stuff. But it's okay to kind of get on lists early, and once they say no, go hit unsubscribe, get off. So many students are finding to create a college search email address, or they're finding time like, oh, you'll look at this on Saturdays, and kind of comb through this stuff and find it to keep it realistic. But definitely get on the information and kind of pick through it. It'll be a lot that comes to them. It's not part of the test, but it will be part of kind of managing that comm flow. None of us can keep up with it in this world, but once they find these schools, to find them, if they decide to take them off the list based on some reason, then just write to us and say, I'm done. Be nice about it, because we might write back to your college counselors and let them know. But yeah, they can kind of move in and out of those information lists pretty quickly. Yeah. I mean, Cynthia.
Oh, I was just saying, sometimes, some of the schools, when parents and students are going on these tours, might be at least separate, going to different tours. So they're not together.
Yeah.
Sometimes that gives the student an opportunity to ask questions they might not necessarily ask when they're with their parent.
Yeah.
A lot of our open houses are geared that way. They intentionally separate the student and the parent.
Yeah. Sometimes the parents are the cool ones in asking that.
Right.
Kids like, Dad, don't do that. Mom, stop.
I can keep talking about college and Penn State all day.
Yep.
And I will stick around until the last one of you votes.
Sam, yeah, we know you've got other things to do, but thank you for being here and come visit. Yeah, we can send them off to the council.